Welcome to Burlesk Custom Guitars. Guitars have been my passion for my entire life. Handcrafted by my hands to be played by yours. Each one I create is like no other. My name is James. Come along with me on this musical journey. If you want to see a very cool episode of Burlesk Guitars on YouTube, you might want to tune in this weekend and check out the full restoration of this 1966 Ampeg B15N amp. What a terrific thing this is. I'm going to try and do some playing on it and get a little sound for you, but my God, this amp is amazing. Wow, so glad I got the chance to do it. I just opened up this Ampeg tube amp, and my God, that used to be this capacitor that blew itself to absolute you-know-what for some reason. And we're gonna have to do a little bit of research, and I would guess if that sucker's gone, we should probably recap this thing. But yeah, boom. Scary. So I'm just working on this Ampeg B15N amp, and I was brought in for retube. And I thought I'd just take a look inside because he said it lost some oomph. I'm looking, and it's an old amp. This is an old beast. I see this. And I see this. And I see this. That used to be a capacitor. And I believe it's a 22 UF 600 volt capacitor that went kaboom. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of work on this and making sure everything's good. And why that went kaboom is a good question. We're going to find out. Other than that, this amp is in really good shape. I want to test all of these caps to make sure they're good, because these are all electrolytic caps. I want to test this cap. I want to test this cap. I want to test this cap. Make sure we have what they call DC leakage not going on. And if there is, then we're going to replace them. Or we're going to do something. That's an interesting bugger. But yeah, we're going to test all these resistors and make sure everything's cool. But yeah, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Okay, we're about halfway there. I got the power section rebuilt, new caps and resistors, etc., etc. And I put in a new capacitor back here. That's the one that blew up, and that is mounted now properly with two leads coming off into the board. I'm just installing a grounded 3-prong cable properly. And I also got my hands on some nice braided cable to replace this speaker cable that comes out, which I'll be wiring up. And then I still got to replace all these caps. But that's an update. Here's where I'm at. Oh, and I got 2 new LED bulbs in there. That's a new cap as well. Yeah, so onward and upward. This has been a lot of fun, I got to tell you. I'm super happy with the way it's coming along. Okay, so we're back with the Ampeg B15N. I think I've already told you, but I've wired in new resistor, new cap, new resistor, new diode, new caps, and I'm just about to replace all these. And what I've done here is just kind of, I don't know if you can see that. See, I've marked all these with a black line on one end, and what I did was I took them and I tested them on my oscilloscope for polarity to see which one of these lugs is shielded. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to put that in the same direction. You see these black lines on these capacitors. So that's why I did that. Some capacitors are marked, but I don't believe all capacitors, so I test them anyway, and I have found some capacitors that are marked with a black mark, not particularly these, but other caps that have had the black mark on one side, and that is not an indication of the polarity. So always, if you can, test them. There are a few ways of doing it. I'm lucky to have an oscilloscope so I can do it fast, and that's what I've done. So what else have I done? I've rewired the speaker jack or speaker output cable. I've put in a new cable so far. I haven't really hooked it up completely yet because I have to do a little bit of research. There is a way of hooking this up, and I think I'm going to be getting rid of this grounding switch, so it'll be just hooked directly up. But right now I'm going to film myself just replacing these capacitors, and as I said before, I think I've tested all these resistors and everything looked good, except for this guy here, and that was the only one I had to replace. So that being said, let's move on and put some caps in. Technology's come a long way, eh? 1968, 2021. still going to be replacing this cap as well. That's on the way. Yeah, this is a stacked capacitor. There's actually 3 caps inside of there. And kind of like a starter. Starter for your car. Luckily, these transformers are both in really good shape, which is a bonus. And I believe they're original from the looks. But we are going to find out. Who knows? Either way. A lot of years of schmutzing. Just gonna line up these LED bulbs I've replaced. Tighten them in. Yeah. Looking good. You always want to make sure when you're doing this too, I always turn it on the side, give it a couple of smacks in case any wires or anything is falling in the underneath the PC board or the board. I shouldn't call it PC board, I guess. And then I'll bring my vacuum in and clean out under here. I don't recommend doing this if the amp has not been discharged, because you're creating a static field with the vacuum. So make sure you discharge your capacitors if you're going to vacuum stuff out, if it hasn't been done already. I do it a lot. I make sure this amp hasn't been powered on for quite a while, but if you're cleaning stuff up, just make sure you discharge your caps, because you're going to send your butt flying across the room if you don't, and that's not good. It tingles, I'll tell you. Oh yeah, giggity. Handy old toothbrush. I mean, be careful when you're doing this too. I'm just cleaning the board itself. I'm not really going into the components or anything. I'm just kind of trying to get any loose crud off there. There was so many loose wires on this. Like, I've tied off as much as I can and replaced as much as I can. Not as much as I can, but I mean stuff that looked like crap, like this line, and this is all brand new power line, as I've said, and we've got the new death cap for Cutie in the back here. Yeah, really looking forward to sparking this girl up and having a listen, because apparently before it sucked. I did not listen to it before, because I just dove right into it. I'm kind of a twit that way, but for this particular amp anyway. But he was telling me it had super low output and no ohm, no nothing, so. But just by all the testing and going over the unit, we knew what to tackle. We knew we had good power. It just wasn't flowing through like it should have. And that's a sign of age. They recommend, let me just turn this off. If I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But they recommend replacing capacitors every 15 to 20 years, depending upon the use of the amplification system. Now, in newer amps, you're not going to find these kind of caps. I'm talking about vintage amps and point-to-point tube amps. Those are the amps we're talking about, not your hybrid tube amps. Which most tube amps that are made today are very, very hybrid. I'll show you guys one of these days when I get one in. I've got one here I can probably throw up on the bench and show you how microscopic components are getting. And it just makes it harder to replace and work on and such. But an old beast like this, yeah. This is the kitty. This is this used to be I can't remember. I think I told you, but if I did not, this used to be okay, so here's the deal. The picture you just saw, I pulled that out of the cabinet and all of these pins here were soldered across and the black line was going into here. That's not how it's supposed to be hooked up. It's supposed to be a jumper, and then this is supposed to be separate, and this is supposed to be separate, this green line. I am going to guess this is where all those problems started with this amp and why that cap popped and exploded and where all those problems came from to begin with, because somebody got in here without obviously pulling this plug out, and you can see I've cleaned it up pretty good, and just started soldering across these three. And this has a safety feature on this amp, and there's a good reason why. It's if you turn the amp on without it being hooked into the cabinet, what it does is it sends a signal back and sends the load through a cap, as opposed to not going anywhere, which is really bad for a tube amp. You shouldn't, I'm sure you've heard it. If you haven't, I'll let you know now. You should never turn a tube amplifier on without it going out to a speaker cabinet. That's not, as long as it's plugged into a speaker cabinet with the right ohmage, you're good. But don't ever turn one on without it, because you'll fry it. And I am going to guess that this thing shorted out, shorting out this circuit, popping this cap, and we lost half of our power, which is what the complaint technically was. The amp was really not putting out anything. So I'm on to something, but I'm not kidding you. I've got, geez, probably about 8 hours into this amp now. Just cleaning it up, fixing it, ordering parts, cleaning up, and finding little problems like this. I'm glad I didn't turn anything on, because I just, you know what, I thought, you know what, I got a new speaker wire in here. I'm going to check out the speaker cabinet, and sure enough, that could have really ruined my day from that picture you saw before. So we may have to continue this episode because I have got still got some work to do, and I want to make sure I've got everything wired and soldered properly, and I want to recheck all these solders in here just 110% before I put any power to this thing. Just kind of anal retentive that way. I've already gone over all of these caps, but I'm just going to do all these boards. I've already done all of the tube sockets as well. I've resoldered all the points, and that's a good thing to do, especially on tube amps, because heat is the enemy. And even though the nice thing about this amp is it's turned upside down, so the tubes are actually on the top of this thing, so they vent out the top. Great design, really good for tube amps. Any tube amps that are feeding up into a PC board, that is a nightmare waiting to happen. Man, I could pick schmutzing off of this thing for weeks. And I have been. Everywhere I look, I see stuff. Drives me bananas. That's just the kind of dude I am, I guess. Or I've now become. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we're almost there, guys. Getting there. Slowly but surely. The switch is wired in properly. I've left the ground circuit and the death cap in, as they call it. A lot of guys will remove this. I don't know why. So yeah, my next venture is to clean this up, put the jumper in, and put this back in the cabinet. There is an enormous amount of crap in this switch. It's like, I don't know what it is, but it's touching all the contacts. It's probably, you know, from 1965. It's just dirt and crud. But that kind of makes contacts over a period of time. When you got this much in here and it's touching everything, you got a contact going on. That's just a recipe for hum. Where's that hum coming from, man? Most guys would probably replace this switch, but or switch this plug, but just need to give it a good clean. I've cleaned this all up. I can see the numbers. It's in good shape. It's not broken. If these pins were loose, I'd probably think about it, but so far so good. But yeah, there's plenty of crud in here from 58 years this thing is, man. This beautiful beast deserves to be brought back to life. I can't wait to hear it. Quite excited. And I know my client is as well. I don't think he's honestly ever heard this amp at its glory. Because he did buy it secondhand and he's had it for a few years. And by the looks, it's been worked on but not modified. And I in no way really have modified this much. I've just kind of updated it and I've replaced the caps with what was in here. The same, oh God, tolerance, that's not the word, oh God, the same values, pardon me. But it's funny, the sizes are so, I actually was going to put in 400 volt caps, but they look so tiny in here. I ended up putting in 650. Now, that is okay, because you don't want to go lower. That's all. I could get into all kinds of stuff with you, but I would bore you to death and you'd turn the video off. But I'm sure it's fun watching me scrape this, just as much as being taught Ohm's theory or what have you, and so forth. But yeah, here we go. We're almost there. Getting this thing nice and clean. Thank God I used to be in the dental industry. I still have a few scalers left. Ew. You're probably not even seeing what I'm doing. My God, and I'm talking away. Okay, so we're all cleaned up on the back. All cleaned up inside. Almost. Give this another spray too, just to loosen up the giblets. But yeah, and then we're gonna rewire this and put it back in. All right, back in a flash. So here we have the female. As you can see, I've heat shrank everything. No contacts are going to make any contact where they shouldn't. And she's all cleaned up, inside and out. It was all brown on the bottom there. You can kind of see some slight remnants, but I still yet have to spray it out, so I will be doing that shortly. But that's how I would want to see it wired up. You can see I've got even that little jumper, I've got a little piece of heat shrink over it. Just in case, there's not much chance of anything making contact with it, but this is, like I said, this has a safety feature built into this amp, so your amp doesn't turn on, and that's part of it right there, that little contact. So what was going on is we had 3 contacts going on, which that's not good. And I'm sure it had something to do with the destruction we saw inside of this beautiful beast. Pitter-patter. Here we have the finished product. I did run a 4-wire, just I didn't like the idea of the jumper on that switch, so I ran the 4 wires like it used to be, and it's all hooked up normal. New death cap for Cutie, all new caps, all the resistors checked, all new caps, all new caps, all new caps, all new resistor, new power line, 3 power prong, grounded. And then I fixed up the cabinet cable, braided the cable, and then cleaned up the switch inside. And I'm about to test this bad boy out, putting some tubes in it. Won't you join me? Still waiting on this cap part, but doesn't stop me from trying it out. That's just kind of just because of the age, of course, this cap should be replaced, and this is 3 of them inside of there, as I said. And just want to make sure that they're all good. Make sure all the caps are good now that we've done all this work, right? So we have 3 6SL7s here, 2 6L6 GCs, and then we have a rectifier tube, which is a a 5AR4, or in this case a G734, which is a replacement tube, or a substitute tube, I guess you'd call it. And whenever you put tubes in, I always recommend taking a nice clean fiber cloth and just making sure you wipe all of the, just in case, wipe off any fingerprints. Because fingerprints have, your skin has oil in it, and oil is leaves a film on this tube and will create an attractant, so to speak, and heat up that area of the tube. Some people don't know that. I usually wear gloves when I'm doing it, but as you saw, I was just using the paper supply. Even when I wear gloves, I do this as well, just to make sure. And just go by and make sure they're all in nice and sturdy. Nice and sturdy. Okay. I'm going to flip this around, set her up, and fire this bad girl up. My goodness.